Welcome to Foxhole Symphony, a podcast about the transformational value of men in authentic community.
In our Foxhole, men are equipped to build relationships that foster belonging, accountability, and growth.
Stop believing the lie that you can thrive in isolation and instead
join us on the journey from broken to whole.
Hello, everyone. They call me the Maestro, and we are back in the Foxhole where we actively pursue belonging, accountability, and growth through authentic relationships. No masks, no agendas, just iron sharpening iron. Steve and Mark are back in the Foxhole, but something's not right, folks. There's yellow caution tape everywhere. The guys have hard hats on, and there's alarms going off in the background. What in the world? Hey, Steve, Mark, what's going on?
Hey, welcome back to Foxhole Symphony Podcast. I'm Sarge here with Mark.
on a soggy Saturday.
Yeah, yes it is.
I feel like I haven't seen you here in a dog's age. By the way, what is a dog's age?
Depends on the dog.
So 7 years more than ours.
I got like a 13-year-old and a 6-month-old.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
The little Juno man.
Little Juno.
All right.
So yeah, good to see you, and good to be back in a hole with you.
No, it's not just any hole; it's the Foxhole.
It is, and yeah, because the only way out is to climb up on you and get hoisted. Heave! Oh, right. So like that's there's no one I'd rather be in a hole with, because you're tall.
Oh, thank you very much.
Among other reasons.
I feel so abused.
Among other reasons. So yeah, and you know, in I'm distracted. Oh boy,
it's okay. It won't be the last time.
No. So we're going to talk about a topic today that we haven't. I at least haven't spent a lot of time thinking about or talking about. And you had this idea to talk about the wrecking balls in our lives. Right?
Yes, and wrecking balls.
And so. Yeah, why don't you kick us off? Like, tell us where this came from, or what comes to mind when you think about the wrecking ball.
Well, what comes to mind is there's a couple things that happened. I must have seen a picture of this because there's no other reason for me to think about it except as you know, I'm a visual learner and thinker. Love pictures, love beauty, and just especially around creation. And we've done everything from stress and flowers to any other
storms,
right? Which can be beautiful in their own right.
Yeah.
We were standing outside, Maria, Jack, and I, looking at cloud, and the sunset yesterday was pink and orange.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. And about an hour and a half later,
massive storm.
Right. Yeah. It was black and green. It was like, okay, all from the same western sky over the pool. But wrecking balls. It occurred to me quickly that we all have these moments in our lives where we feel a little stable, settled, that a steady state. In my job, we call that the program or platforms in a steady state. All you got to do is keep an eye on the green and red lights and make sure things keep just chugging along, right?
Yeah.
At one of my clients, they call it BAU, business as usual. Like, okay. And we all have those moments in our lives. And those could be when you're in a good groove working out, right? You got your physical steady state. You could be in a spiritual steady state. You're attending church, your family's somewhat aligned, you doing your devotionals, you belong to maybe a group like Victorious Together or Band of Brothers, Marked Men. I'll get back to Victorious Together. That's a spiritual steady state, emotional steady state, where things just, are kind of easy. I'm doing the pool where you're just
pool float.
Right. You're just floating in the pool. There aren't too many waves and no one's doing cannonballs in the neighborhood. That would be another good name for this, would be cannonball. But those steady states can be adjusted. They can be without your notice.
Yeah. And
the wrecking ball picture that I see, because I'm just older, is when they do demolition on a building, especially a big building. In New York City, back in the day when I used to go with my parents, and I'm talking about in the 60s and 70s, there were these cranes with long cables, and on the end was this massive metal ball.
Right.
And this crane operator would just swing the crane left and then swing it right, and it was kind of a willy-nilly demolition. I mean, you really didn't know.
Right.
What was going to come down. So you'd have to cordon off, blocks. Now
Yeah.
They blow them up in place, right? Somebody who's a munitions expert goes in, sets the charges in the right place in the stairwells, and knows, all about
exactly how it's coming down.
Right, the engineering of demolition.
Right.
It collapses. Right, implodes on itself. It goes in. Now, by the way, just for anyone who's listening that lives anywhere near us in and around New Jersey, Hunterdon County, you know about the construction on Route 78?
Yep.
Where on the mountain on Jugtown, they're blowing out another, I don't know, quarter mile on either side, and they have to blow up a mountain to do it. And they keep miscalculating.
It's our friend Rob's company doing that.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
No, yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
No offense, Rob, but having to close Route 78 so often because the stuff you're blowing up goes into the road where the cars are driving.
Exactly. Like they put up the metal wire, the mesh wire, and they're like, this fencing. You're like, nah, that ain't helping.
No. And then
boom.
And I have a friend who works with me in Raritan, but lives out in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. So that's his loop. And
brutal.
he constantly sends me pictures of him being diverted off of Route 4 around to get to Peaburg and out to Nazareth.
Yeah.
And there's a piece of mountain sitting in the road.
Yes.
With bulldozers scurrying around.
Yep.
Right? In any case, those are two unplanned demolition moments.
Yeah.
So the difference in the wrecking balls don't matter. What I was envisioning when I wanted to talk to you about this is, how did that apply in my life? And something must have happened that day, and I don't recall exactly what it is, but I want to talk about those moments in our lives where we find ourselves kind of steady, just chugging along. And all of a sudden, something happens. We get tsunamied and wiped out, just swept off our feet, where you're making the same thing I did with Bobby G with that cartoon sound again, hit in the face, because your jaw's loose. And you're like, what the heck happened to me? How did I get here is often the question I'm asking myself, especially spiritually and in repetitive sin times, where like, wait a minute. I'm doing good. I'm praying. I'm reading. I'm listening. I'm writing. I'm journaling. I'm churching. I'm worshiping. I'm singing. I'm a mess.
Yeah.
I get wrecking balled.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm headed.
Yeah.
And
so you mentioned a couple of things. One was the tsunami, and even before we hopped on the air here, you were saying, like these massive tsunamis, and you've got a couple walking out of their hotel room at the palatial resort, right?
Right.
With their Mai Tai in hand, and they hear this
whooshing sound, they say. Right. Like
but can't see anything because of the row of palm trees, and all of a sudden, right, just this massive wave just wipes them out and wipes everything out.
Go from honeymoon to disaster.
Yeah. So that's the, and I don't know if there's like warning sirens, probably not, I at least in those parts, my sense tells me there isn't, or more people would be out of there. Like it comes out of nowhere. There's no warning.
Right.
My point in bringing that up is, sometimes there's no warning, right? It's just out of the blue.
That's a really good
cold
point.
cocked. And then other times there is a warning, right? Hurricanes, right? You've got, you're on the east coast of Florida or the Gulf Coast or whatever, and the storm's coming and they're going, get out, time to evacuate, and people have a decision to make. And they get fair warning, but it's inconvenient. So, do I go or do I stay?
Changes everything.
And so, I mean, and I'm bringing that up because I'm thinking of scenarios in my life where I have had warning. It's like, this is maybe a path we shouldn't be on. Maybe we should change course. Maybe we should, right? And it's like, for one reason or another, I stay put. And I'm sorry I did.
Stay there for a minute.
Okay.
I think you're headed down a great path. That
painful.
That part about I get a warning.
Yeah.
I've heard this before. I've felt this before. But we convince ourselves to stay on that path.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a huge problem for me, because once I see my goal and I have a plan to reach it,
right.
Ask anybody in upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to get me to turn left and right.
Right.
Could we change the reservations?
You become the wrecking ball,
Yes.
right? I become the wrecking ball. Someone gets in the way, someone or something gets in the way of my plan, or even God says, oh, no, I'm going to put this wall up. Chances are guys like you and I are running through the wall because we've got a plan.
And that's where the bias for action goes.
Right.
I've been watching too much Fluffy, so I get these sound effects.
So like, and why is that? Well, maybe it's just because we love our plan, right? Maybe it's self-protection. Maybe it's again just the whatever it is that comes with the plan, right? Comfort, security.
The ability to move on to the next plan.
Maybe, right? all these
What's
things.
next?
Or obligation.
Right. Or being seen as the planner, the effective planner.
So
Guilty.
So like all these things we go, yeah, but, right? So there's that. And then there's the circumstances of life that it's just, there's nothing that could keep us on the course toward that plan because of the wrecking ball, right? It's look out, boom, and we get upended and thrown onto another path, right?
Right.
With no control whatsoever. The tsunami.
Right. You've had the wind knocked out of you. You're on your hands and knees.
Now what?
Right.
Now what?
Now what is the right question? That's it.
Yeah.
And what do we do? What do we do in those moments?
Yeah. Beg for mercy.
Look behind you and go, what the hell hit me? Really? That's my first reaction is, how did that happen?
Yeah.
Often when I'm in the moment you just described, which isn't that often because I'm a control freak. I try not to let that happen.
Yeah.
But when it does, when I'm knocked off my feet, my first reaction is like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And often in my conversation with God, it'll be, what? Didn't we have an agreement here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is me putting my voice in God's mouth.
Yeah.
That's all that is. It's manipulating my relationship with him to make my dreams his.
Yeah.
You know, where I say, Lord, what do you want from me?
So let's,
when I had the answer already.
Just to provide more context for our listeners, what are some of those wrecking balls? Not even necessarily for us, but for people in general. Like, what are those out of the blue wrecking balls that just knock us off course?
Oh, Lord.
I mean, there's a million of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll give you work. Work wrecking balls are the in team-oriented pursuits. You have a project and you have a team leader and all the people on the team and everyone in the room is nodding about yes. But it doesn't take long to figure out that some people in the room were saying yes, leave the room, and are talking behind your back, have a different plan, think you're lost, and really don't want to follow you, but they have to because you're paying them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's where to your face, you're getting one story in the team, and behind you, you don't have the support you thought you had. So as a leader, and I'm using my own experience, but I think this could apply anywhere. As a leader, you're marching ahead thinking. All the everyone's in the canoe rowing. You're all rowing in the same direction. You're heading towards the same dock, goal, river, but it's not really going that way. And it's bound for failure.
It's very interesting that example. Like when I think of wrecking balls, like I think of mass demolition, I don't think of that as demolition. You know what I mean? Like I kind of look at that and go, I don't know. Like, doesn't that just happen everywhere? Isn't that just like day-to-day life? You know, like those frustrations or those having to deal with that nonsense. Like, doesn't everybody just deal? I don't know.
I hear what you're saying. I'm specifically thinking of a $13 million project.
Okay.
That was destined for failure because the team pretended to be aligned. And there was no way to get that job done on time and on budget.
Okay.
So somebody was going to suffer. The customer was going to suffer because the delivery team wasn't aligned.
Got it.
And that's 13 million reasons why that's a big problem.
Yeah. It's interesting. You know, there's, I don't know, fire comes to mind. It's less of a wrecking, but I mean, but definitely, right. The devastation that comes from fire. And the words "little fires everywhere" just came to mind. And that's a show, and not to like, but like sometimes there's just a little fire. It's like, I got to put this little fire out. I got to put that little fire out, whether it's relationally, whether it's at work, wherever it is.
Yeah.
And I don't think of that as devastating because I just go put it out. And then I go put this one out and I go put this one out. But as you span out, as you zoom out, it's like, wait a minute, they're everywhere. Like it is one giant, massive forest fire.
Behind you.
Just don't realize it, right?
Right.
Like, because you're so used to putting out these little fires everywhere. And, until you realize that like there's somebody lighting them. And then you're like, wait a minute. Like I'm spending all this time putting out these fires, but it's like that person over there that I like really thought I was aligned with, this goes along with your example, who's actually lighting the fires? Wait a minute. Like, that's a wrecking ball.
It is. I've got a, thank you for the visual, because I've got a fire wrecking ball story, and you know it. All the wildfires, you live in the United States on the East Coast, we don't get a lot of wildfires here in New Jersey, but we read about on the West Coast, X hundreds of thousands of acres have been burned down. How did it start? Lightning or stupid campers? Those generally are the two reasons we hear.
Yep.
I don't know
what spark.
Right. I don't know what really happened, but it doesn't take long to read that story about the devastation and the gazillion-dollar homes and the potential death of people and animals, pets, wildlife, etc. For a few days after, you notice there'll always be a green person come out and say, that's the best thing for that forest.
Mm-hmm.
That burn is going to ensure the health of that area.
Right. Hence controlled fires, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so there's a wrecking ball in that for the people.
But there's restoration. There's restoration on the other side. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could go down that road with a 6-part podcast. But I just to go back. So there's the little things, and then there's the immediate devastation, right? So going back, the tsunamis in our lives, right? Yeah. Death of a loved one, right? Comes to mind. Going back to the work thing, like out of the blue, loss of a job, right? Layoff, termination. Whatever it
house
may be.
Fire.
House fire. Right.
Oh, right.
I lived that with a very, very dear friend, and just absolutely.
Talk about a wrecking ball, right?
Oh my gosh.
Like
utter devastation.
You go to bed one night.
Yeah.
And the alarm sounds, your smoke alarm sounds, and the next night, 24 hours later, your house is gone.
Yeah. And all your belongings, your possessions, right?
All the things you thought were important.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, just, and so the truth is, for me, like just confession time. I don't even want to say it, actually, because it's just part of my confession, because of the amount of fear that I have about an enormous wrecking ball in my life, but I haven't really had many. And I don't even want to say it because I feel like it's going to invite it.
You'd call it a jinx.
Yeah, jinx.
I don't want to be jinxed.
Jinx. The truth is, though, like they've been little ones. They've been little wrecking balls. They've been not even the metal ones. They've been like softer ones. In God's grace, thank God. I mean, sure, I've experienced loss here and there, but like not the greatest fears in my life, right? Like the loss of a child. Yeah, like these are the things that come to mind that I feel like are so visceral that I live with every day. Like they are never far from my mind. Yeah. It's just me, right? But many of us,
away.
Yeah, many of us, though, many of you listeners have experienced this. The breakup of a marriage, the loss of a spouse. I mean, disease. Like listen, I haven't had these things in my life, thank God, and maybe someday I will. I hope not. I pray not. But they happen, and so what happens? What do you do when that hits? And I can't speak to that from experience. I can't.
No, I can speak to it a little bit. So I'm 64 years old. I've lost my mom, my dad, and my sister so far in my life, and each one was a different wrecking ball. The loss of my dad feels like a really small one, actually, because he had moved to the West Coast and was estranged from the family, not from me necessarily, but he was just gone. He just wasn't in our family. I want to get to my sister, but loss of my mom was the biggest wrecking ball in my life. But that's, when I look at my whole life, I haven't had many wrecking balls. But when you lose your mom, you can imagine, and you know my relationship with my mom and her impact on my life, my family, my world. That's a whole episode, right? Mom. But Rini was special in a mom's way. But the loss of my sister, wrecking ball, is very interesting, is because I don't know if you heard me, but you mentioned the wrecking balls in your life, and I haven't had many. And I had a really deep sigh because I got this heaviness in my chest thinking about Sue, my sister, Susie Q, and losing her to a combination of diabetes and other things. And she just wasn't well. She was morbidly obese. And I have convinced myself that she's better off in heaven, even though I don't know if she had a saving knowledge of God, if she was saved. And I didn't help her in that journey. And it wrecking balled my heart because now I've just convinced myself that the life she had, they were starting to amputate toes, and it was bad diabetes, the kind where talk about they cut off half her foot, and then they were talking about legs and so on and so forth. And she just got really ill and passed. And I remember thinking to myself, as weird as this sounds, Sue will be better off, and not ensuring her path to heaven is a heavy, heavy weight that I carry. And I honestly have never stopped and spoken to God as often as I do. I haven't spoken to him about, am I right? Is she better off? Like, do you have her?
Yeah.
I don't know that, but that's my, that's a two-sided wrecking ball for me with big questions that still remain in my life.
Yeah.
But I come back to your point. I haven't had, other than that, I haven't had many. I've watched wrecking balls. I've been a spectator at life wrecking balls in other people's lives, but I'm very, very blessed. Not having been swept off my feet too many times.
Then there's the wrecking balls that, again, like we cause, that we invite, right? Because of our sin, because of our woundedness, our baggage, our trauma, whatever, right? Our decisions lead to, the trauma and wrecking balls in our lives. A lot of, many broken marriages, right? Are the result of, some kind of, sin problem, right? For me, I've definitely experienced more of those in my life that I invited, right? That were consequential. They're consequential. They're the wrecking ball consequences in our lives that we don't anticipate, that for one reason or another, we don't anticipate. And we say, wow, never thought it would lead to this, right? Because we never do. We never do think, our sin will take us that far.
Right.
Right.
That's ripples, right, baby?
Right.
Episode 34.
Exactly.
Or
our addiction. Just this one, we've talked about a lot of these things. Well, just this once more. And then boom, death. Right. Or, and for me, again, it feels like another life 30 years ago. I mean, really as a child, really. Right. A late teen and, very young man, in addiction and leading to incarceration and, massive wrecking balls, and even walking into the courtroom going, I've never been in trouble before. And I confident in my baby faith, confident God's going to deliver me from this because it was one little mistake. Right. And, God had another plan. Yeah. And talk about a wrecking ball, right? Walking out of that room going, oh, my life's over. Well, no, right? Easy to say now, to look back and go, no, your life wasn't over, right? It was just the beginning, actually. Yeah. And of experiencing God in a whole new way and the miracles that were to take place. So, I mean, again, just this dichotomy, right? There's the big wrecking balls, there's the little ones. There's the ones we cause, right, that are consequential, and there's the ones we don't, that are just, they come out of the blue.
How about the ones we cause? The unexpected, unintended wrecking balls that someone tells you about later. You know, when you said that to me, like you had no idea.
Right.
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 And it just, that ripple, remember we talked about ripples going out and coming back at you?
Yes.
Right. After it hits the shore, it rolls back.
Well, isn't that interesting, right? Like sometimes our words, just our words, can be wrecking balls, or others' words in our lives. The messages that we speak, the messages we hear, especially when we're vulnerable or impressionable.
Yeah.
How often do we hear that in the lives of men that we know and love or work with or talk with? That the message, right? What was the message you heard? What were the voices you heard? As that 6-year-old boy, as that 12-year-old boy, or as that 27-year-old man, or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it was this. And then all of a sudden, as we uncover those and speak those, there's clarity and a path, albeit a painful one, that ultimately leads to healing. Because, wow, that's not true about me. That's not really who I am. It's just what was said. Not just, but, right? And all of a sudden.
And it imprinted on my heart.
Yeah, right. The fingerprints.
Yep.
Those can be wrecking balls. Right?
This happened to me. What you're describing, I wish I could tell you I was 14, but I wasn't. I was 64. And I was sitting on our porch the other night with you. So, folks, you should know, you're going to hear about this Victorious Together thing. Victorious Together V2G is a new small men's group that Sarge and I are participating in another effort to deepen our authentic community.
Amen.
But we're sitting in our first meeting the other night, and I was talking to another brother in the meeting, and as words were coming out of my mouth, I just felt like, oh my gosh, like, am I okay to say this? Is there a tsunami or a wrecking ball in my words when I'm trying to help? I'm actually trying to peel the onion back with one of our brothers, and said something, and I had to apologize. It was a minute and a half after I said what I said. I meant it. It was a question I felt needed to be asked, but I had to ask. I should have asked permission. Right? I felt like I should have asked permission, and I was so afraid of wrecking ball because our brother was vulnerable at that time. He was soft, and I don't want to hurt. I just know my mouth gets in the way sometimes, and I realize that I've hurt people. I've wrecking balled them with my words.
I'm looking at the duct tape and hammer, right? Because sometimes we have the best of intentions in truly helping someone, rescuing someone, fixing something, fixing someone, and even with the best of intentions, they can not come across that way, or be misunderstood or misheard or perceived as not helpful. Right. And not that yours was, I remember, and I picked up on that, and you're maybe being a little hard on yourself, but there's truth to that, right? There's truth to that. And it's a fine line. Yeah. It's a fine line.
And I really just wanted to give a personal example of how words can wrecking ball people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not my intention at all.
Right.
Not at all. So,
and that's it just reminds me of the importance, something I talk to my team about at work all the time as they develop young leaders, is the importance of asking clarifying questions, because there's very little risk in asking clarifying questions that help a person think and come to their own conclusions, right, versus telling them what their conclusion should be. Right. And that's
beautiful.
It's just and as we work with men and the hearts, like getting them out of their heads and into their hearts to get to that place. It's something I've learned a lot over the years, the past decade plus in various ministries, including Markman, how to do that well, how to facilitate, good, healthy, productive, conversation and thought to facilitate that rather than lead them to the place that I think they should go, but rather just facilitate that and allow God and His Spirit to do that work in that person.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think that takes an enormous amount of practice, and then, it's like, and we screw it up, right? But I do think that's a skill worth honing.
When you hear the words wrecking ball, listeners, what are you thinking about? Have you maybe caused a couple that there's a time for confession and repentance and apology, ask forgiveness? If you're not sure, you might want to mend that relationship, those important relationships in your life. If you've been wrecking balled and hurt by someone or something, seek reconciliation, right? To reclaim that and find out where God is in those things. Because I think if we look, and you don't have to look very hard, you'll often find God in the neighborhood. He could be on the reconciliation side, or it could be our Father saying, here's your wake-up call. It might look like a wrecking ball to you. It could be God trying to get your attention.
Absolutely. I think that's a critical point, that particularly when it's relational and we've been hurt, or worse, like dismantled, there's always a need for perspective and healthy evaluation of that, right? Like, and not to say that, however, whoever it was that hurt you could have been absolutely sinful, but is your level of hurt, how does that measure up to what actually happened? Right. And for me, like, that is so critical, and I need outside perspective. I need wisdom, and I need counsel to help me appropriately evaluate what it is I'm feeling and the extent to which I'm feeling it, and whether or not it's appropriate. Right. And what part of that I can own, even if it was totally inappropriate, whatever was said to me or happened to me. But why is that? What came up for me? Why am I hurt so deeply? And what is it God might want to do in that? What healing might he want to provide? And what's my work in that? And who is it around me in authentic community that can help me do that work?
And that, dude, what's my work in that?
Yeah.
Like, what's my role?
Yeah. Because it is so easy to point and go, look what, And you know what? There might be some responsibility that needs to be taken there. And that relationship might even need to end. Right? It's an abusive relationship that needs to not be abusive. Right. And, and so again, like, there are times where, not always, but there are times where it's like, wow, like, what's going on here? Right. So especially later in life, that goes back to an earlier wound that needs healing, that maybe never got addressed, that just keeps coming up, bumping, bump in the night. Right.
Yep. What is that? Why do I keep getting hit with that? Why does that still hurt?
Yeah. And that's tough. Oh. But I need some honest people in my life that can look at me and go, wow, this is a pattern. And it's not just that person. It's this person and this person and this person. And it's not all the same person, but it's always the same reaction for you. Again, not to let everybody else off the hook.
No.
But, oof.
Look, we can wake up every morning and breathe in and out and open our eyes and start a new day with many of these wounds that you're talking about, having set our little forest fires, having made small, large, medium, and large wrecking balls in lives. You can live.
Yeah.
The question is, for me, it's what am I after? I want more.
Yeah.
I want more depth in my relationship with you today than I did yesterday. I'm not willing to settle for just, we're good. That's just not my nature.
Right.
I want to move. And that really applies in my relationship with God. I have a great plan for every day that he gives me that I can grow an inch closer, as you know. But I've decided years ago, I can't do it alone.
Yeah.
I know we've said this before.
One of the patterns that I'm acknowledging, that I will confess, that I'm hearing a lot, especially lately, from the people I trust around me, who say, have you taken the time to really just get with God on this and talk to him about this and hear from him on this? And I'm usually very quick to respond. It's like, and
I did my devotional this morning.
Exactly.
Right.
And
I said that fast because
I'll say that, and they're like, no. Like, have you retreated? Have you taken a half day? Have you taken a full day, a few hours today? This was said to me yesterday. by someone in my life. And it was not a major, like, significant issue, but it's I don't have clarity. And they're like, have you taken the time? And when are you going to do that before you have to make some decisions next week? To ask God for the wisdom and the clarity and just sit and listen. And because I'll do it. I'll pray that prayer, but it's usually awfully quick and I just expect it to happen. But anyway, I so
know what you're talking about. I'm feeling this one right now.
Oh man. Yeah.
God knows.
God, right.
I'm reading about unanswered prayer right now, and just with a quick tangent. It's just about the when you feel strongly, when you speak to the Lord fast or slow, long time or short time, and you feel an answer, like you feel it, and then you pray and you feel nothing.
Right.
And wait a minute, like, Lord, I really need an answer to this. So the writer of this book that is The Silence of Unanswered Prayer. Mm. And he actually asked me, he spoke to me, and he said, think of your last 100 prayers. Mm. How many were answered? Mm. Dude, it rocked me.
Well, yeah.
Just rocked me.
And again,
like, no.
Yes. And that sounds like another episode.
It is.
And let's do
unanswered prayer.
As it relates to the wrecking balls, right? And some of these that, especially those dealing with people who are just like ill, right? Terminally ill, right? Like, yeah. Like, what is, yeah. So yeah, I could go down that road really easily. Like,
well, that's what I heard when you were just talking about, needing community and God putting people, the great news, folks, anyone listening, is that Sarge decided that he was going to put trustworthy men around him, and you've given them permission to speak into your life.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's so important.
I need that.
If you have it, it's a blessing, and you need to tell somebody else.
Yeah.
Because that gift is one of the most beautiful things. It doesn't cost you a nickel.
Yeah. In
a world where everything costs something.
Yeah. One last example that just came to mind. And this is in, my early adult life, but, had a young family, somewhat work related, investment related, and had a plan, right? And, sought counsel from some people that knew better than me. And every one of them was like, I don't think I would do that. Next one. Yeah, that doesn't sound right. Right? Next one. I'd be a little concerned about that. In my young exuberance, so quickly dismissed every one of them. What do they know? They don't see what I see.
Right.
Forged ahead, lost everything. Financially. I shouldn't say everything. I lost everything financially, materially, right? And had to claw my way back, and for my family. But massive wrecking ball, and the reason was I didn't heed the counsel that I sought, and I'm reminded of that all.
What a good lesson.
The time, and I've learned to trust in my wife's discernment. I've learned to as hard as it is, like, no, as people in my life recently tell me, I think your prayer life needs to change. How long you pray, the prayers you're praying. I've been hearing, this is the theme, right?
Yeah.
And I could so easily go, what do they know? They don't see what I see and what I really do it. Like,
how much do they pray?
Well, not even that. It's more like,
me.
They don't see the whole picture. I didn't tell them about this, and this, and this, and this. It's the rationalization, right? It's the rationalization.
Absolutely.
But the truth is, God is speaking through these people. And I'm listening. I need to listen.
Don't take it lightly, and don't take it for granted.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
and again, it just highlights the need for community, not just one person, not one voice. One person could tell me something, I could dismiss that in a second. Two people, and I could go, they're in cahoots. Three people, now there's a theme.
Right.
And somebody might be, somebody bigger than them might be behind this.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really do believe in my heart that is God smiling and honoring your willingness to open to those 1, 2, 3, 5 people. I mean, you are tremendously blessed and surrounded by trustworthy people.
Yes.
People that, and I say trustworthy, people who you trust.
Yes.
And you pour into them.
Yeah. I mean, who I know, love me and want the best for me. Right. And nothing else.
I'll say as one of those blessed people in your life, I want you to know that if I have wrecking balled you in any way, I apologize.
Oh, never.
It's never been my goal to do that. I don't have a hurtful bone in my body. I just can't control my tongue. If I could control my tongue, life would be so much better. I can control my feet, my fingers, my eyes.
Yeah, I guess the tongue is all muscle. No bones. No bones about it.
So I'm going to go pray about that and work on it. But thank you. This was awesome.
This was good, brother. Great topic. Thanks for inviting me into it. And folks, if you're the wrecking ball, if there's somebody else, so many messages in here, and we could go on and on. But I encourage us all to just spend more time on our knees, praying, asking God to show us our blind spots, asking God for the courage to love our enemies, asking God to send people in our lives who love us for who we are and we can trust with our stuff. So, yeah.
I have one common denominator. I love common denominators. You know that. What appeals to me in this conversation, and I didn't even realize it when I prayed about us talking about it. If you have been demolished, right? You've been wrecked. Turn to God.
There's hope.
Right? Please turn to God to heal.
Yeah.
If you have wrecked someone or demolished something, ask God for forgiveness and healing. The common denominator in this, if human beings are involved, you've heard me say this 1,000 times, it's going to be screwed up somehow.
Yeah.
Humans have a tendency, right? We just can't control our tongues or something else happens. But God is there. If you've been hurt, if you've been wrecked, if you've been demolished, he's there. And if you have allowed your tongue or your checkbook or your hands to hurt someone, demolish something, wreck a heart, a soul, seek the Lord. That's the answer. The answer isn't for you to fix it on yourself. Throw out your hammer and duct tape. Stick with God.
Amen.
All right?
It's a good word, brother. Thank you for your wisdom, as always. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Foxhole Symphony podcast. We're glad you're with us, and we hope you're blessed.
Peace.
Peace.
There's 2 things we can be sure of. 1, those wrecking ball moments will happen in our lives. And 2, our hope is in our loving and gracious God who made a way for us. Yes, you too. Long before those wrecking balls started flying around. Those wrecking balls come in all shapes and sizes and from many different directions. Sometimes we see them coming, sometimes we're blindsided by them. Sometimes we are the wrecking ball, and sometimes we are the bystanders watching it all play out in front of our eyes. If you didn't already have enough reasons to find a foxhole or to start a foxhole, I hope this will encourage all of us to think about living our lives in authentic community before God and our trusted brothers in Christ. And as Mark said, if you are in despair because that wrecking ball moment just came through your life, take it to God. Lay it at the foot of the cross and ask him to help you and to guide you. I'm reminded of what Jesus said in John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that you may have life and have it abundantly. Lord, please continue to use this podcast to impact the lives of all who listen. I ask that you would bring hope and healing to each and every one of them. Meet them right where they are and reveal yourself to them like only you can do. In Jesus' name, amen.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it and invite others to the Foxhole. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you know when new episodes drop, and please rate us and comment there too, as it'll help us get found by others who could benefit. Find, follow, and like us on your go-to social media networks by searching Foxhole Symphony or visit foxholesymphony.com to make it super easy to find us. Drop us a line with feedback, questions, topic requests. Who knows? Maybe you'll be a guest on a future episode. In the meantime, prepare to move, embrace discomfort, and just be you.